Mr. Donovan, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Let's hop right into this. I think most of us around New York are getting to know you because we see you on television, highlighting your role with the Obama administration. Will President Obama do something like endorse your campaign?
Well, he's certainly been supportive, as folks who have seen the ads know. But I think what New Yorkers also should know is that I'm a lifelong New Yorker, a grandson and son of immigrants, and I started rebuilding neighborhoods in the South Bronx and Central Brooklyn 30 years ago. And as housing commissioner in this city, brought homelessness down, created a lot more affordable housing. So while I'm deeply proud of my 8 years in the Obama cabinet, I'm also deeply proud to be a New Yorker who's worked to rebuild this city crisis after crisis. You
said President Obama was supportive. What does that mean? Have you talked to him about this campaign?
Of course, we've had conversations about it. And as you see in the ads, he's been deeply supportive of the work that I've done over the years. Look, he chose me to be housing secretary during the worst housing crisis of our lifetimes for a reason. He asked me to lead the recovery back from Sandy. And then, I guess because no good deed goes unpunished, he asked me to be budget director over the $4 trillion federal budget just weeks before Ebola emerged. So he's trusted me, as New Yorkers should trust me, to lead back from this crisis.
Ayanna's going to chat with you about policing.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for being here. It's great to see you today. Do you believe that the NYPD's budget should be reduced?
Look, I think we need to do two things at the same time: create safety and respect. And that means focusing the police on guns and violent crime, the things I hear about on the subway, on our streets every single day. And I think we can reduce the role of police. They shouldn't be mental health experts with our homeless or patrolling the hallways of our schools. And if we do that, then we can really focus them more on guns and violent crime. But at the same time, Ayanna, we need to be reinvesting in our communities. And I'll give you an example. When I was housing commissioner in this city, I gave housing to folks coming out of Rikers, and it broke the cycle of incarceration. It helped them get back on their feet, back to work, and gave them hope and jobs and other opportunity. And we need to be reinvesting in our communities to break the cycle of violence and hopelessness, as well as focusing on guns and violent crime.
Mr. Donovan, I have a question about your plan for New York City. You've said under your leadership, New York City would be investing in $500 million a year annually in community-focused public safety and racial justice initiatives. More specifically, what kind of initiatives would the city be investing in?
Well, the first example is what I just talked about a moment ago, which is housing. What we see right now, we have twice as many individuals living on our streets and in shelter than we saw 8 years ago when Mayor de Blasio came into office. And that's because so often what we see at Rikers is folks with mental health challenges, and they get out and they fall through the cracks and they end up on our streets in our shelters. And instead, what we need to do is invest in what's called supportive housing that creates real opportunities, not just to have a permanent place to live, different from an open-air drug market at a shelter and the kind of violence we see at shelters right now. This would really allow people to get back in communities, back on their feet. And then there's job training, there's other investments that really break the cycle of hopelessness. And look, our clergy, there's so many organizations doing this work, violence interrupters, and we need to invest in those at the scale that really can make a difference in stopping the increasing crime we see.
So aside from taking some funding from the NYPD, how would you pay for these initiatives?
Well, look, most New Yorkers don't know we're spending over $400,000 per person per year in our correction system at Rikers. And we know that we can invest there to make sure that we're ending the cycle of incarceration and hopelessness. But what I would also say is we have a huge opportunity with President Biden in office. I like to say this is a New Deal moment when we have potentially trillions of dollars of aid. We need a mayor who can work very closely with President Biden. No one has the relationship in this race that I do with him, with leaders in his administration, with leaders in Congress. This is a huge opportunity to tap into those funds and get the share that New York deserves to invest in every one of our communities.
Thank you. Henry.
Let's talk about education. You chose private education for your children. That's a luxury some in this city do have. We know you were in D.C. for a large period of that time. But many families have to choose public education. So talk to us about the decision-making process for your family.
Well, we moved our children to D.C. for President Obama's term. They actually went to school with the Obama's children there. And that was a decision we were lucky to be able to make. But here's the thing. We can't move our children ahead without fixing our school system in New York. And we know that not just in this last year with COVID, but in the years before, so many children were falling behind. And that's why I have the most comprehensive education plan of any of the candidates that will really fix our schools and give opportunity. But here's the other thing. Right now, we know that there's a huge gap in the availability of college, the ability to go to college, to afford it. And one of my signature proposals is what I call equity bonds. Every child born in this city should get $1,000 in an account. And every year, depending on their income, another $2,000. That means a child born into poverty would graduate high school with almost $50,000 in an account. Think about what that could do to allow them to go to college, to start a business when they get out, to buy a home, to really change the game for our children in this city.
Let me phrase it this way. So you do everything you're talking about. Let's say you spend 8 years in office. You win this race, you win re-election. Does everything you're doing make you, as a future grandparent, turn to your sons and say, hey, you got to send your grandkids to these public schools. I fixed them.
Look, there is no future for this city without fixing our public education system. It's as simple as that. And we know that there are huge gaps along racial lines. I'm the son of an immigrant, and I see so many dual language learners that are falling behind. But here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with New York that can't be solved by what's right with New York. We have great public schools in this city. I want to create 450 more dual language programs, and I want to connect our schools to jobs, especially at a time when we still have depression-level unemployment, more than 500,000 New Yorkers out of work. Let's make sure every single kid in our high schools has a paid internship or apprenticeship. Let's really make sure our schools are connecting them to not just the academic success, but connecting to them to jobs of the future.
Ayanna?
Thank you, Henry. Mr. Donovan, I want to talk about a number. 200,000. There were 200,000 eviction cases pending in New York City courts before the start of the pandemic. The courts tell us they have no idea what that true number will be once the current moratoriums end. So should New York City step in and offer these tenants real financial relief?
Absolutely, Ayanna. And look, this is the issue that spurred me to be a public servant in the first place. As a kid growing up in the city, I saw homelessness exploding on our streets. And I asked myself, how can it be in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country on earth, we allow our neighbors to sleep on the streets? So I started volunteering in a homeless shelter. And over 30 years, I've built a career helping people stay in their homes. And here's the thing. Just like I did when I was housing secretary after the Great Recession, when I was housing commissioner in this city during that time, we figured out ways to get the help directly to families. The problem is, for so many of them, they don't know where to go and how to get this done. We need nonprofit organizations and others to partner with them to keep them in their
Just want to ask, what does that help look like? Is it a check?
Absolutely.
To help pay for your rent?
And here's the good news. We have billions of dollars that's been passed in Washington. What we need now is a mayor who knows how to work with organizations on the ground to get it to those families. We're on the verge of the worst eviction crisis of our lifetimes. And here's the thing. It's not just the money. We also need to get housing counseling and legal services to those families as well. This is how I helped millions of families stay in their home when we faced the Great Recession and the worst housing crisis of our lifetimes. I have unique ability to be able to get that done as mayor, too.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. And Henry has a few closing questions.
Yeah, just a couple quick questions at the end here. Do you support coronavirus vaccine passports? If so, what should they be used for in the city?
So I believe we do need the very latest technology and testing, and passports are part of the solution.
What sort of venues?
Look, I think clearly our indoor venues, whether it be Broadway or our smaller performance spaces, I think they can be very helpful with restaurants as we get rid of the social distancing that's still in place. But here's the thing, we also know that so many New Yorkers haven't had access to vaccines. We need to do a much better job with mobile vaccination sites, getting out into community rooms, into libraries, really ensuring that every New Yorker, particularly our frontline essential workers, are getting the vaccines that they need.
In that vein, would you require school children, especially high schoolers who are becoming increasingly eligible?
I would require that this happen. Look, we do this with lots of other vaccines already. My children are required for college to have vaccines. And I think it's the right thing to do to get our schools back open, because we know that remote learning isn't working, especially for our kids who had struggled the most in the past.
Ayanna?
Absolutely. Governor Andrew Cuomo, if he runs for re-election next year, will you vote for him?
I won't, and I've been clear that I believe he should resign. And this state and this city need a leader in Albany who can focus on the future, not on the accusations that we've seen.
And our last question, Broadway is finally coming back in September. What's the first show you'll go to see?
Well, I would have to say that I am a huge fan, and you know, one of the things most people don't know, Ayanna, I actually got the chance to perform on Broadway as a high schooler. It was one of the most amazing experiences. It was Oliver, the show, and so I'm really excited about getting back out there. But I'm not waiting. I've been going to outdoor performances, and one of the things I think we ought to do, we have all of these vacant storefronts. Let's fill our vacant storefronts with performances, with artists, and make sure that we're bringing our city alive even before Broadway reopens.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us.